Krishla, guess what?
What?
We are recording our first episode ever.
Oh my God, we're actually doing it.
Yes. So to everybody who's listening, welcome and thank you for lending us your ears in our inaugural episode of Mad Marketing Mums.
So today we are going back to basics somewhat, as we should. We're laying the foundations here for a really sustainable marketing strategy, something that's actually going to work for you, whatever your business is. Yeah, this is what we're all about here at Mad Marketing Mums. We want to show you the essential elements, the things that you actually really need in a marketing plan, not all the other fluff and the hype and all of that stuff that sometimes we get carried away with and we get shiny object syndrome. So today we are looking at the must-have element for any marketing and for any platform and whatever it is that you're doing. So whether this is, creating posts on Instagram, sending emails to your email list. And if you don't have an email list, don't worry, we'll help you out with that as well. Whether it's writing a blog post, creating a podcast, whatever it is, this one element is the very first place that you need to start.
It is the essential element. And yeah, like Krishla said, we are going back to basics on our very first episode. And we are talking about your ideal customer, your customer persona or avatar, what some marketing professionals call it. There's a bunch of other names for it, but knowing who you want to talk to, who you want to connect with, who your service or product is for, is absolutely critical because it just will ingrain itself. It has to ingrain itself within all of your marketing.
Yeah. Now, before you go, I already know this, scrolling on, or whatever it is you do on a podcast, scrolling away,
fast forward,
whatever it is, listen, I know you probably do know this already, but are you doing it? The great Suze Chadwick, who was a friend of ours here at the Mad Marketing Mum, she always says it's one thing to know something, but it's another to actually do it. So even if you've been marketing, you've had your business for a while, chances are you still maybe want to be revisiting this on a regular basis. And that's because lots of things can change, as we know, as the last few years have really proved to us. Perhaps you've changed directions in your business. Perhaps your customers or clients or followers have had a change in the way that they buy, whether they've switched, from shopping in store to shopping online, or even changed their habits in terms of the way that they consume content. It's also really about keeping yourself focused on that person that you are trying to speak to instead of trying to speak to everybody.
Exactly. Like my husband likes to put it, it's not necessarily always about what you know. It's about who you know. If you could talk about your service or your expertise till the cows come home, but if you are talking to someone who doesn't speak your language, who is not interested in your service, who is just not going to end up buying from you ever, what is the point of discussing your expertise with them? So it's very, very much about who you know and knowing who you should be speaking to attract them to your socials, to your website, to your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the reason this matters from a content marketing point of view, which is what we are focused on here at the Mad Marketing Mums, obviously, it's going to help you, I think, in a number of different ways to get really clear on who it is that you want to speak to. First and foremost, obviously, it's about attracting the right followers or getting people perhaps off of social media platforms over onto your website to sign up to your email list, whatever that next step is, in order to eventually buy from you or work from you. So yes, that's the number one goal, right? We really want to be doing that with our content and with the way that we're showing up. But there's a number of other different reasons why you want to be doing this. And I would say one of the most important ones, at least for me, It's about saving you a whole lot of time. If you're just
Mm-hmm.
putting out really generic messages and they're not, making that impact, creating that connection, you're kind of just wasting your time and you're making content for content's sake. And there is nothing worse than that.
Yeah, look, Krishla, you know what I'm like when it comes to wasting time. I absolutely hate wasting time. And I would rather not post any content if I don't know who I'm speaking to for a client, for example, than actually post something and make it feel like it's just throwing letters out into the wind in hopes that someone's going to grab one. It's knowing who you're speaking to is not only going to save you time, it's also going to save you money, because the more you post with not really resonating with your audience, the more likely your audience is just going to not engage and potentially not buy. It's just like when you are speaking to a toddler. So Krishna and I both have toddlers that you may occasionally hear them in the background running around and such. But, for example, you're going to be wasting a lot of time speaking to a toddler like you are speaking to an adult. You have to get down into their language and get down to their level in order to get them to do something. It might take a little bit of repetition, but you are not going to be wasting your time if you start speaking to them in their language and in their tone and etc., in order to get them to do something that you need them to do. So knowing exactly who you're talking to is definitely going to be attracting those right followers, and also keep you from wasting money on ads and time and effort in talking to people that are just not interested in what you need to say.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm.
And attracting the right followers is definitely the hill that I'm willing to die on. I talk about this a lot with my
And
clients,
that's
with my students, the right followers. And, there'll be cynics out there, or at least ones in my imagination, who are saying, oh, she's only saying that because she doesn't have heaps of followers on Instagram. I've got a moderate sized account. But they are the right followers and they engage with my content and they convert and they buy from me. And that is the most important thing. I don't really care what happens on Instagram. I mean, I do. Of course, I do. I'm an Instagram coach. This is my bread and butter. But I care more about what's happening off of Instagram and in my bank accounts, in the actual relationships that I'm forming with people, and the incredible clients that I get to work with, and amazing businesswomen, predominantly women, who I work with. Now, that matters so much more than the number of followers. It's about having those right followers. And I know people have heard this before, but I think we often forget, and I forget sometimes too. I get a little bit sidetracked by those vanity metrics, things like reach on your reels. We can talk about that another day. That's a whole nother topic. But having the right followers is going to help you in a few different ways. First and foremost, they're going to engage with your content, if nothing else, even if they never ever come and buy from you. If they are interested in what it is that you talk about and you are speaking to them in a way that connects with them, they are going to engage. Now, we know that engagement is the secret sauce to Instagram or other social media success. So we need people liking, commenting, sharing, saving, doing all of that good stuff, right, in order to help our account to perform well. So even if they never come and buy from us, their engagement gives us an opportunity for our content to be put in front of somebody who actually may eventually come and work with us or buy from us. Likewise, if we've got this really good engaged customer base, they might share our content or our account with their friends who are like them and who are like our ideal customers or clients. So it all has a knock on effect. I think, it's easy to get hung up on the day to day or individual post metrics and forget about the big picture of what we're trying to build post by post, relationship by relationship.
Yeah. And to touch on your point about engaging with your followers and getting the right followers and such, this leads to an even bigger, I guess, affirmation. that a lot of business owners may forget, and that is that your product or service is not for everyone.
Yes.
Any business or business owner who thinks that their service and their offering is for everyone is marketing to absolutely no one. Now let's take for example, say, a business networking group. You want to attract you don't want to attract just one type of industry. You want to attract multiple industries. But then you also have to think about what the price point of those people that are networking within that business is. So if you are at a like an affordable price point versus, say, you're doing retainers of a few grand, that's a totally different type of business owner there, and they might not necessarily fit in with your networking group. But if you say that my networking group is absolutely for everyone, and you expect people to pay a hefty membership, and then they're not getting referrals and leads out of your networking group, then was it really in the end for them? Probably not. So
Mm.
it's really about thinking of exactly who your offering is for, which leads to, well, then how do you actually figure that out?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think there's a number of different ways that you can do this. And I know we had a bit of a chat about this before. First and foremost, I think we need the data, right? So we need that
Yes.
information to work out who our right followers are. Now, we're sort of using the words followers and customers interchangeably here, but ideally, we are using our social media or our marketing channels in order to attract customers and clients. And both Clem and I tend to work with service providers. So, we're going to use the term customer or client interchangeably, but someone who wants to work with you or buy whatever it is that you have to offer. Yeah, that could be a course, that could be a digital product, that could be physical products, whatever that is. So I think first and foremost, in order to get to know these people, we really need some kind of data. So I would say if you have customers already, that's a great place to start. And if you don't already have customers, don't worry, we'll talk about some ways that you can get that data as well. But I find looking at your existing customers or even your existing followers, if you have quite a large following, on a social media platform or you have an email list that you can look at, I would say that would be your first starting point. What do you think,
Yes.
Clem?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Yes, your customers are going to be an incredibly valuable place for you to get that data, and emailing them is definitely one way you can do it. However, I don't actually recommend ever necessarily just relying on emails, and especially relying on surveys, because you'll get two-word answers
Mm,
or a tick box when you can really dive in to frustrations, emotions, complaints, what they love, what they wish, what they're missing within their business or their environment that you could possibly fill by talking to them. So
yes.
sending an email, introducing yourself, thanking them for using your business, and asking if you can have a chat with them can be so much more powerful in you giving you the ability to grab those nuggets of information that could really just make some of your content just absolutely resonate to the core
Yeah. Well, and
with your
that's
ideal
that's
client.
the point of this, right?
Yeah.
So we want to know who they are in order to, create products and services and stuff that meet their needs. But even, before that or beside that, it's really
Mm-hmm.
about understanding them in order to create content that attracts them to you.
Yeah.
Attraction based marketing, I think, is so important, especially in the world of social media. And again, this all
Mm.
works together. This is how you get your right followers, by understanding who it is you want to talk to, by creating content that serves their wants and needs or helps them solve a particular problem or pain
Yes.
point that they're having, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I love this idea, Clem, of, actually talking to them. Like, who would have thought? Revolutionary. We want to find out about our customers. How about we ask them? Yeah.
And I know it can be nerve wracking to get on the phone or to get onto Zoom or Google Meet or wherever. And look, I'm a bit of an introvert, which is, I know, sounds kind of weird. Yeah, I hate getting on the phone. I hate talking on the phone. I hate, like, I love social media because I can do it in my pajamas and my trackies. But getting out of my comfort zone to go and talk to clients about what has made them tick, what have I done to make them tick and contact me, or what my clients have done to get them to do the same thing, you wouldn't believe the amount of stuff that you can get out of it. I mean,
Mm.
one client I've recently done this type of interviews for, we found out that like majority of her clients have rescue staffies. So what are we going to
As in
do?
the dogs. Oh, yeah.
As in the dogs, yes.
The
As
dogs.
in dogs, most of them have staffies and they are rescues. So what does that
Interesting.
say about the type of clients that she's attracting? She's attracting givers. She's attracting people who want to serve others versus um, versus products that answer, more of a, I guess, I don't want to say a selfish need or anything, but the proof is in the pudding. When you looked at all of the professions that these people had, they were people that are servicing to help others with a need that is um, that can't be answered by shiny baubles or products. They were therapists. They were life coaches, that sort of
Mm.
thing. That's what she ended up attracting those clients. And it's like, well, if they're adopting dogs, then they also are very much about helping others. And so that kind of attitude we can embed within our content to
Yes. And you
resonate with
wouldn't
them.
have got that from a
No.
survey because you wouldn't have thought to ask that. You wouldn't have been out
Yeah.
surveying, on your client's behalf and say, by the way, have you adopted a dog? Like, it's just
Yeah,
not kind
and
of,
you know what? What are the big perks of asking, "Do you have pets?" You get to have a lot of conversations and see cute dog and cat photos and lizards and stuff.
yeah.
So it's great to find those common links, and then people actually will warm up to you, especially if they don't know you. If you're asking, if you're talking to them, and you're ending up having a conversation versus a stiff interview.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. Now, what if you don't already have clients? So, say you're just starting out. If you don't already have customers or clients that
mm,
you can message and say, hey, can we do, an interview, this little market
yeah.
research call, whatever you want to call it. How do we get that data that we were talking about before? And I know, we spoke about surveys aren't the very best thing, but you could do that if you wanted at
Yeah.
least some starting point. What
Yeah.
else would you recommend?
So going to your local or your national government's Bureau of Statistics website. So here in Australia, it's the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
Yep.
You can get some decent nerdy nuggets of information about your personas or your target market, even down to their localities. Like you can, if you're a local business, you might find that really helpful. Another thing you can do is, obviously ask family or friends that you can make the safe assumption that they would be in your target market and just
Mm,
pick their brain.
yep.
You could even go so far as, sitting in a cafe and asking people, if, asking them a couple questions and seeing if then you could maybe then start to interview them. But Google is probably going to be your friend big time. I'm pretty sure Google Scholar still exists, where that is like the Google domain for scholarly articles.
Oh,
So
I've never heard of this.
yeah, so oh man, I hope it still exists. But Google Scholar is the Google of scholarly articles. So go and put in what you assume your persona is. So say for example, time poor busy parents, and see what comes up. And you might find studies that have been done about that type of person and see what kind of information you get out of that.
Excellent. I was just
Yeah.
thinking also, even if you perhaps don't have customers yet, but you've got an online audience, of course,
Yes.
you can get
Yeah.
the basic information about their demographics and stuff like that
Mm.
through, for example, your Instagram Insights data.
Mm.
One thing that's actually really great for a number of different research reasons, and it would certainly work here in this case, is Facebook groups. So Facebook groups
Hmm.
are incredible for comment mining. So, getting in those groups and looking for people who match up to your ideal customer avatar, your target market, whatever it is you'd like to call them, um, and just seeing the kind of things that they talk about or the questions that they ask. I think that's a really powerful way, especially to find people's pain points, right? Because people tend to get into a Facebook group with a couple of different types of posts. One, complaining about Australia Post. That seems to be, at least I'm in a lot of small business groups, but no, there's often
Well, and we were
complaints.
talking about Australia Post before we hit record as well.
Yes, yeah. So there's often people are complaining about something or they're
Mm.
sharing a frustration that they're having, right?
And people are
Um,
more likely to complain than they are to compliment.
Yes, and they'll do that in a Facebook group because there's that sense of privacy. It's a sort of false sense of privacy, right? That they
Mm.
maybe wouldn't do on a public page. So I think that's what makes it really powerful. So they'll either be complaining about something or sharing a struggle they're having, or they'll be asking a question. I find so there's a lot of help. I need to know this. Where do I find this? And so I think if you can get into some of those Facebook groups that your potential customers or clients are hanging
Mm.
out in, and just sit back and listen, do a bit of social listening. I think that could also be a really great way to get some of that intel, whether you have an existing audience or you don't. I mean, even if you've got clients that you can listen to and ask questions and interview, there's no reason why you can't do this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for that additional bit of
Yeah.
information, the color and flavor of your ideal audience, right?
Yeah, and if you want to be a little bit more of a social media detective, you can always use the search function in Facebook groups
Oh,
as well.
yes.
It's not great, so I would say start with maybe one word and go really broad and then narrow it down, but then when you use that search bar, it'll bring up any posts that have to do with that particular topic, and you might find those nuggets of
Yes.
information that you are searching for just through that search function.
Yep, I do that. I go in and I search. I'm giving away all my secrets now. I search for Instagram and see what questions people are asking
Mm.
about Instagram. And if I can, if the question's not from like 2 years ago, then I'll drop it and I'll share, links, knowledge, expertise, help them answer that if I can, because then it also makes you a good group member and it helps to build trust, right? Which the trust is, I guess, the number one ingredient to all of this. Yeah, this is why we want to get to know our customer, why we want to attract them. Because who do we buy from? People we trust. So it's really important
Exactly.
in whatever setting you're in to have people trust you, trust that you know what it is that you're talking about. Yeah, and you're not full of you know what? Um, we don't want the explicit
You're
racial
not full of bull.
full of BS. So they can trust that what you're saying is credible. You know what it is that you're talking about, but also trust that they're going to have a great experience with you and that you are going to be able to help them with whatever it is that they're struggling with.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned before that you like to ask people about their pets. Do you have any other questions that you really like to ask people to dig down and get to know them better?
I always love to hear what their answer is to what channel do you love to use to learn?
Ah,
Because if you just go, what's your favorite social media channel? Most people will just tell you whatever channel they end up spending time on in a social capacity. But if you ask them what channel they use to learn, they're you're telling them for a specific purpose, like what type of medium, what type of channel or platform you use to learn, and you might discover that it's actually different to the channel that they hang out on.
mm,
So if you're a service provider, you obviously want to be seen as the expert in your industry. You're going to want to be there where they are learning versus where they're being entertained big time. Now, I'm not
Yes.
saying that you can't put out educational content on the platform that they're being entertained on. That's not the case, but you're going to be able to find out where they are, what they're using to find the solutions to those problems that you can answer.
I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And because you're in a different mindset when you're on those channels.
Mm,
So
yeah,
you might enjoy having to scroll through Instagram, looking at pretty pictures.
yeah,
But yeah, then you may choose to go onto YouTube to actually learn stuff. I mean, gosh, what
yes,
can't you learn on YouTube, really?
yeah,
Um, Related to that, you could also say, what channels do you shop on?
mm,
Because I know myself, I am a prolific Instagram shopper. Like, just show me something, I'll buy it. Like, I'm every marketer's dream. Yeah, so yeah, that's a really good question. I like that. I tend to like to ask people um, what it is that they're struggling with, and typically it's been up until now really with regard to Instagram because that's my sort of niche, if we want to get all technical here with terms. But that's sort of where I help people. So it's normally about the things that they're struggling with on Instagram. Normally, I'll dive a little bit deeper and go, okay, what are you struggling with regards to something like reels or,
mm,
hashtags or whatever? Bit more specific with the questioning. But I find that if people are sort of, once they're comfortable in the conversation, if they're able to have a little bit of a vent, have a little bit of a whinge, this is where you can get like some really great insight into what it is that they actually need. And again, as I
yep,
said before, this helps obviously with your product development or service development, but also with your content. And often when people are kind of having a little bit of a whinge, you could get some really great content. So you can take their exact words
yes,
and use them back in your marketing. So on my sales page for Instagram Unpacked, that has just been retired, as a matter of fact. But on there, I have a line that I got from a market research call with somebody, and it was regarding Instagram Reels. And she said, she tried Reels, but it just made her want to throw her phone at the wall. And I was like, that is perfect because that
and
captures,
we have all been there.
right? That captures that feeling and that frustration. When it messes up your lip sync or compresses your text and it looks all
Yep.
weird, right? I was like, I couldn't have said it better myself. And so you don't. If you can't say it better yourself, you take
Mm,
those words that your customers or clients are sharing and you use those, whether it's on a sales page, in a marketing email, in your
mm,
social media captions. Yeah, it's just amazing. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I love that. That's just the perfect way to describe that kind of, I guess, that resistance that people have to
mm,
doing reels and dealing with
yeah.
the reels editor and that. So yeah, I like listening to people whinge. Okay.
And besides, what pets do you have? Because I'm an animal lover. And then also, where do you go to learn online? One other question that I love to ask is, can you describe the service offering or the business in 3 adjectives? Why do you
Mm,
do this? A is you can start to draw out customer testimonials that way, especially if you have a really tough time getting people to give you a testimonial in these interviews. Use it as an opportunity to get a testimonial. But the other thing is that with those 3 adjectives, you can see if your branding is aligning with how your customers are thinking and feeling about you.
oh, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to do that.
Do it.
I'm
Just do
so
it.
Oh, I love this. Look, if nothing else, this podcast has taught me a couple of things today. So fantastic.
But that, yeah, so not only will it help you make sure that your branding is aligning with the customers that you're attracting, but then also getting those testimonials that are the hardest thing to
Mm,
get sometimes,
yes.
because it is so much easier to complain than it is to compliment. Which I love giving compliments, but it's so much easier to whinge too.
Yeah.
It's, yeah,
100%.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
All right. So we've spoken about, this essential element is to really understand our audience, and to get this data on them essentially. And that data, it's coming from your own lived experience. It's coming from, actual customers or clients that you already have. It's coming from market research and data that's out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have all this data, what are we doing with it, right? I think this is, people may be sitting here going, yeah, cool, now what? Like, what
Mm.
are we going to do with all of this data?
So I like to tell my clients, well, you know what? We're creating your social media soulmate. So we're making a dating profile. That
Mm,
really is essentially what you're doing. You're creating a bio for a conglomerate of characteristics from your target market. So put it down on paper, create a backstory, find an image of a person's face looking at the camera that looks essentially for what you would believe your persona, your target market is going to look like, and give them a name.
yes, give them a name. Because
Mm.
if I say to you the name Karen, you immediately
Ugh.
know who I'm talking about.
To the degree of the type of haircut and
Yeah.
highlights that she gets
Mm-hmm.
on her "Can I speak to the manager" hairdo.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
She's wearing her cropped capri pants, and her espadrilles. Um,
Hey,
she's
don't knock espadrille, okay?
so,
Bloody love those shoes.
but yes, that's the name is really, really important. I
Mm.
used to do social media marketing for Holidaying with Dogs. They are, hopefully, they won't mind me telling the story, but they are an
They don't have
accommodation
a choice now, so
provider.
you
I
know.
know, right? They are an accommodation provider. It's a bit like Stays or Airbnb, but all of the properties are dog friendly, and they are properly dog friendly in the sense that they let your dog stay inside, because there are some websites where it says dog friendly, but then the requirement is that the dog stay outside, which for pretty much every dog owner, no, that's a
Mm.
non-negotiable for them, right? So we had a couple of different personas for their audience, because we had very different audiences on different platforms. And so over on Facebook, we had an older demographic. They were more budget conscious, and they'd actually been following the website, following Holidaying with Dogs for many, many years in its different capacities. They used to have a guidebook back in the days, and then everything, of course, went online along with the booking system. So they were kind of the OGs, the diehard people who had been holidaying with their dogs, with their kids for years and years and years, right? And then we had a different persona on Instagram who were probably more our age, so 30s, 40s. They had the younger kids. Um, they perhaps had even younger dogs, right? And so there were two really different personas. And so sometimes we'd create content for Instagram where we'd have sort of fake swear words, and or be playing on culturally, relevant memes and things like that. But we go, no, we can't do that over on Facebook because our person's name on Facebook was Judy, because Judy wouldn't like the swearing. So we'd tweak it accordingly so that we, were speaking to the customers and clients in their language and in the way that they like to communicate. So you don't have to have just one. If you do have a really diverse audience as well, I think that's a good
Mm.
to make. If you're going to put together this avatar, buyer persona, whatever you want to call it, there's lots of names for this.
Mm.
But really, even if you don't go, I think, down the formal route of having this buyer persona and you just have a nice list of characteristics or that person in your mind, it's going to help you so much with your marketing.
Yeah. And if you've got a desk and a wall in front of it, print out that persona document that you create and slap it on that wall so that you've got it in front of you and it's constantly reminding you of who you are speaking to when you are creating your content.
Yeah, it's going to make it a lot easier, I think, for your content
Mm.
creation too. And of course, remember, we always want to be creating content for our audience, not for likes, not for reach, not for an
Yeah.
algorithm, right? It's all about that person, for
Yeah.
Judy or for Jess or for Steve, whatever, whatever their
Yeah.
names are, right? I think, yeah, that's a great tip to have the actual picture there because
Mm,
it's going to keep them front of mind with everything that you're doing.
yeah. Now, you touched on having multiple personas, Krishla. Is there a limit? Like, because there have been times where you might find, oh man, I've got actually five or six. Is that too many, or is it maybe better to start then grouping ones that are very similar, or is it no, just stick to two or three? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think five or six would be too many.
Same
And it
here.
pulls us back to that idea of, if you try to talk to everybody, you're talking to nobody.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to have different personas if you're using really different social media platforms, for example. So you might have a group that you're speaking to on LinkedIn who are
Hmm.
perhaps your suppliers, for example, whereas you're speaking to your actual customers, say over on Instagram. And in that case, it makes
Yeah.
sense to have two different personas, two different styles of content
Your
and
tone of voice is
communication.
going to be different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But within one platform, especially, I think what you want to do, and this sort of, it almost comes down to niching, and again, a whole other topic we can talk
Mm,
about. I recommend niching, not necessarily for your business as a whole, but for your content. So you are known for something in particular. And the same could be said with your audience. So speaking to this segment, this group of people specifically, it makes it easier for you to make content decisions. So you're not, going off on all these tangents and getting shiny object syndrome. It helps you to be really clear with your messaging and to form those relationships. And the cool thing about algorithms is once you start getting the right people following you who are aligned with your customers or clients, or who are just the people you want in your community. You might have an Instagram account, for example, and it's just about building a community. It's not about selling anything. That's absolutely fine. This still applies. Once you have that really great group of people, you're going to attract more of those kind of people because algorithms will put your content in front of people who are like your followers and who are like the people who are engaging with your content. So that brings us back to that point I made
hmm.
earlier about we want the right followers because they engage with our content. And when they do that, our content gets pushed to more people who are like our right followers. Conversely,
Yeah.
if we have the wrong followers and they don't engage with our content, Instagram might try and push our content out to more people that are like them. And guess what? They're not going to engage either. Yeah. Ugh.
Mm,
And it creates this downward spiral of Instagram despair, right? The same happens on other platforms as well, whether it's interest based like TikTok, or other meta ones are very much still social and relationship based. But having those right followers helps you to attract more of the right followers. Yeah.
mm.
So
Because those right followers talk to other right followers,
correct.
and
And
there's word
so,
of mouth. There's so much activity that happens off of a phone or off of a
and
platform.
or even on the platform, but you don't see. So people sharing your posts via DMs, you don't see that activity,
Hmm.
but it's happening and it's influencing the way your account performs as well. So I think you don't want to go too broad again with who it is that you're trying to speak to, because if you try and speak to three, four, five different personas with one account, it's going to mean you have a lot of different content types. That confuses the algorithms and they don't know what your account's about.
Yeah.
And then they can't serve your content to the right people. I feel like I've said that 100 times, the right people, but it's so, 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 so important.
It's
Um,
like telling our toddlers to put their shoes away. To the
oh,
right people is the put your shoes away on this
yeah,
episode.
brush your teeth, brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah,
Don't get
we've
me
got to
started
we've
about
got to
brushing
say it
teeth.
again and again because it's vital, right? And both,
Yes.
both of these things, having the right followers, having clean teeth, it's going to make you smile more. So, yeah. Okay, Clem. So to wrap things up here, as we said, I think the key recommendation here is getting to know your follower. Yeah.
Do your market persona research for sure.
Exactly. But we've got a little freebie for you to help you do exactly that. So if you've been listening and thinking, oh, I have no idea, how do I interview someone? What do I do? We've got a little something, something for
Don't
you.
worry, we got you.
We got you. So,
So yeah, so we have created a little bit of a freebie. We are going to give you, if you sign up and subscribe. Is that correct? No.
no.
Shit. All right, hang on. Let me start again then.
Okay, so we've got the freebie, which is.
Yeah. So, yes, we've got a freebie for you. We have compiled a list of interview questions that you can use to get to know your customer persona a little bit better. So, these are questions that are designed, some of them are yes or no, some of them are open ended, but they're designed pretty much so you can start to have that conversation and start to weed out those nuggets of information. So they're questions that may lead to other questions that you have, and then you might find, yeah, that your persona loves rescue staffies or loves a particular flavor of ice cream, and you can use all of that research to compile your persona and create amazing content.
And you may find out that they are, in fact, on TikTok when you assumed that they
Yeah,
weren't because you thought TikTok was
exactly.
only for kids.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
example.
Exactly. But Krishla, where can people find this freebie?
Yeah, so you can download that freebie in our show notes. You'll find that at madmarketingmums.com/episode 1.
Woo. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for talking about personas. At this point, it's about 45 minutes of talking about personas, and we thought we were going to only be talking for 20. So I think we did well, Krishla, for our first episode.
So too. I think so too. Thanks so much for tuning in. You'll be able to find a few more episodes here to get you in the marketing mood. And until next time, don't
Yes.
go chasing waterfalls.
You just had to put that at the end, didn't you?
To sign off, any suggestions, please give us something,
Yeah.
Jerry Springer style. Take
And
care of yourself and each other.
and if you stay tuned past the outro, you just might hear some bloopers from this episode.
Yeah.
Just to keep you a little bit more entertained.
As we said, thank you so much for joining us today. Head on over to madmarketingmums.com/episode 1 to get your hands on that freebie and make the time to schedule those calls with either current customers or clients or with people that you have identified very much fit your customer persona. And you never know, after that little chat with them, they may choose to come and work with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, till the next episode.
Take care.
Bye.
For a few minutes to get our
Yeah.
voices, see how we're feeling. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling
Okay.
pretty good now.
Feeling good. I know. What are you drinking? What's your drink of choice?
It's right now. It's Goon. Because that's all I had in the
I'm jealous. I need a